Nothing has really changed. Entertainment can distract you for a while, but it can't fill the hole inside you.
Wisdom doesn't just make you smart, it makes you calm.
Welcome to the Recap Book Chat. We are a mother and daughter duo
conversing about books over a cup of joe.
seeking truth to help us glow.
Ready, set, let's grow!
We're not supposed to have all the answers. We're supposed to trust the one who does.
Well, welcome to the Recap Book Chat. Today we are diving in on the book. What is the book of Ecclesiastes?
By
Michael Whitworth, written in 2026.
So it's brand new. And how did you find out about this, Nana?
I listened to a podcast with Chris McCurley, and he had Michael Whitworth on. And then I also listened to Wes McAdams, Radical Christianity, and he had him on, both. And he was writing a book for adults on Ecclesiastes, but they mentioned that he'd already written one for children because he writes these for his daughters.
And
that are various ages, but I said, I wonder if the boys would like that. And then I sent one to Ellie and Ryder, too.
And you brought it down here when you came, and you started reading it for the boys, and then we finished it. And it is
Really
so good.
It is.
And it's not very long. It's only 122 pages. And he goes through the book of Ecclesiastes, but really it's a super in-depth look at Ecclesiastes. So thank you for getting us on this journey.
Takes it chapter by chapter.
14 chapters.
And it does break it down in I think it's easy to understand. He uses a lot of similes, but when you dive in to the first one, I liked it. He talked about it being on a treadmill, and that we're all on this treadmill called life, and that society tells you this: if you get this, you'll be happy. If you get this, you'll be happy. And he tells us that Solomon tried 3 things to get happy, which everybody still uses the same things, right?
Yeah.
What are those things, boy?
Those things are stuff, money, and wisdom.
Money would be like entertainment as well, right?
Yeah.
And how'd that work for Solomon?
Not good at all.
Yeah.
I have a good quote to pull from the book.
Great.
All right. Pleasure is like cotton candy. It tastes great for a second, then it's gone and you're left wanting something more.
Powerful. Yeah.
Nothing has really changed. Entertainment can distract you for a while, but it can't fill the hole inside you.
Oh, powerful. And that's all Satan can do. He's pretty weak. He can only take like a fake version of something God has already created and distort it and entertain you for a while, but you're left, just like Titus said, wanting more because there's still that hole. What about the word Habel? What does Habel mean?
It
Anybody
means
know?
temporary.
Yes.
And this is huge for me.
How is it translated in the text, though, usually?
Meaningless. And those are completely different ideas. So if you were to say your life is meaningless, it's demotivational. But if you were to say your life is temporary, it's very motivational. It's like, you're right. It's a vapor. It goes bad. Like, I need what's really important. I feel like that's a mistranslation because in our Bibles it says meaningless. I don't know why, but temporary is that's the original meaning, and that's what should be in there.
And some people said vanity. That was another one. Vanity of vanity, but still that's just like meaningless.
Yeah.
You have another quote?
Yes, you were made for more than this world can offer.
And we need to remember that, don't we?
Yes, this world cannot offer us enough to keep us. Like, if per se you were quote unquote the king of the world and they gave you gifts, they gave you kingdoms, they gave you money, power, fame, anything in the world that you wanted, you would still never be happy. You would always want more and more and more, and you couldn't be happy. And you always felt like that was that hole inside of you that couldn't be filled. And you tried to fill it in with like money and all this, but none of that worked. The only thing that can fill that hole is accepting Jesus into your life.
Only God can satisfy. Don't believe the lies of the world. So
And
true.
that's why this book is powerful. It really gets to the heart. It's geared towards kids, but me and my husband both loved it. So I mean, so even though it says
I did
kids,
too.
I wouldn't if you're an adult, go for it because it's really good. But those questions that kids ask, like, why are we here? What's the purpose of all of this? It does a deep dive
Yeah.
on that and more, but those main questions get answered.
Joy is a gift from God. And yeah, he points out that people can't have joy unless they have a gift from God. I don't think we realize that, when you need to be present and notice the gifts he gives you each day. Because he's giving you some gifts. Like when you eat with your family, he said, eat with gratitude. When you do your work, do it with faithfulness. Enjoy the small moments because this day, it's your gift. Live it well. Feel bad if someone halfway lives it, because then you have regrets. But if you live it well, then you won't have those regrets.
I like that you said a gift because we a lot of times, and I think he talks about it that in there, we get to where we're more entitled. We feel like we deserve things and we should have these things. And when you start down that road of entitlement and you forget that it's a gift, that's not a good perspective. You'll never be satisfied if you have the entitled perspective.
That's prideful, isn't it? And then in chapter 3, he talks about a time for everything, which he tells you that life is not a straight line, is it?
No.
Life is like this. And you don't get to pick the season that you're in. Who does?
God.
God picks that season and he walks with you through it.
And in the same chapter of We Have a time for everything, there's a quote that says, "We're not supposed to have all the answers. We're supposed to trust the one who does."
And in chapter 3, he talks about, I loved this. I had never thought about this before, how we are dust and breath. So we were made out of dust,
Yep.
but also, and that's to keep us humble. You're dirt. You're just dirt. If someone calls you a dirt ball or a dirt bag, you say, yeah, that's true. I am a dirt.
If someone tells you, funny story, we are all made out of dust because we come from Adam, who's made out of dust. So technically,
right.
if someone
But
says, you're just a piece of dirt, well, I mean,
Yeah.
biblically, that's correct.
But then the other thing he says, which connects us with God, is the breath, because we have the breath of God. He breathed life into Adam. So we have earth and God in us. And I thought that keeps us humble, but keeps us connected to God. I thought that was powerful.
That's very powerful. And just be grateful for that breath, that divine breath. We are set apart from the animals. We're different.
Mm-hmm.
So we have authority and he's given us dominion, but we just need to be responsible with it.
So true.
And basically, kind of the main part of Ecclesiastes, kind of the sum of the entire book, is basically that we don't have all the answers in the world. It's because sometimes you're wondering, well, like you have these questions, but it's like no one can answer them because no one really knows. Only God knows. But it's like there are some things that should remain questions, until we get to heaven.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing people always ask is why do bad things happen to good people? That's a question everybody asks. And he hits on that a little bit, like justice and injustice. Why do criminals do what they do and all this? But we don't have to know that. It's really freeing to say, okay, I'm aware that it happens, but what Titus is saying, going back to, we just have to trust God.
This is
Trust
a
God.
sorry. This is a really good quote, and a lot of people think wisdom means you're smart, right? Like, oh, I have a lot of wisdom. I'm smart. Well, it's really cool because he says wisdom doesn't just make you smart; it makes you calm.
And calm people don't know all the answers, but what do know? They know God,
Yeah.
who does know all the answers.
And they
Yeah.
don't have to know all the answers. And I like how he goes into that too, talking about there's this in the knowledge that we crave knowledge. We want to know things, but and I like that you pointed that out, Jonah. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, knowledge means like you know things. Wisdom means like
You know the one who does.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
okay with not
Yeah.
knowing. And that produces this calmness. But if we're like continually trying to gain knowledge, we're striving so much. we're putting a lot of effort into something that is meaningless. Now that is meaningless. And the fact of the matter is that Adam and Eve, the reason why they took the fruit was for knowledge. So that should be a
Sadly.
sign to us. We got to be careful with knowledge and our pursuit of it.
Watch your step. Watch your step. So true. And, I've had kids before that were smart, and I've had kids that were wise. And smart kids have a lot of cringy moments. Like they say stuff they should not have said. But a wise kid, they just won't say anything. Like if you know something that someone doesn't know, a smart kid will say, "Well, I know that." But a wise kid, some of the wisest kids I've had would never said anything
You're right.
because running someone else down does not make you look good. And that's not the kind thing to do. So I like that you brought that out, Jonah. There's a big difference between
Yeah.
wisdom and just being smart.
I connect that too. For whatever reason, when you were talking, who jumped out at me was the priest from the Count of Monte Cristo, because you're talking
Yeah.
about not defending yourself, which Jesus didn't defend himself either. We watched
Mm-mm.
that movie last night, The Passion of the Christ, and you want him to defend himself, but he doesn't need to. And he knows he's fully loved. And
Yeah.
that connects with that priest was with the atheist guy who was just kind of condemning all priests and everything like that, saying they're posh and how they waste money. And this priest, he was a minimalist. He didn't take all of the perks that came with the job, essentially. But he never did. And I'm like, defend yourself, man. But he didn't. He
Yeah.
didn't because he was he didn't need to.
Yeah.
Kind of like do you remember in Les Mis that bishop? He said, when they're trying to
That's what I meant.
arrest the
That's what I
guy,
meant. I'm sorry. I said Count of Monte Cristo. The bishop. I meant that one, Les Mis.
and he says, "Hey, you forgot the candlesticks, and I gave it as a gift to you because you know what? Stuff is not what it's about." And that goes with chapter 4. You weren't meant to do this alone. I think really, he talks about oppression, envy, laziness, isolation, and fame. And he's talking about life can go wrong. And we had a book that we read one time, Vices. There's tons of different vices, and that's about life going wrong. But that's why God set it up. We're not meant to do this alone.
Mm.
And you guys are reading a book called The Bronze Bow, where Daniel meets some really good friends.
Yeah.
He had bad friends. He had some bad friends. Or he thought they were friends, but they just had a common purpose.
They were
But then
thieves.
he meets
Here's a
Common thieves.
As you know, I pulled out another quote. Wisdom doesn't just make you smart, it makes you calm.
For
Ooh,
another
that's
quote.
good.
Well, why don't you go to chapter 5 and pull one out for chapter 5?
I'm on
Chapter 5 says to watch your mouth. Jonah, what does it mean when it says watch your mouth?
It means that don't use the Lord's name in vain. Don't say, the things use words wisely because it says use the thing the chapter 5 says something about don't use the Lord's name in vain, especially when God's around, but he's everywhere. So you should never use the Lord's name in vain.
Also, here's something. This is not much of a quote as it is a paragraph, but it says, the teacher gets even more honest. There is
Futility?
futility that is done on the earth. There are righteous people who get what the actions of the wicked deserve. There are wicked people who get the actions of the righteous deserve. Good people suffer. Bad people prosper. The world feels upside down. This is one of the hardest things about life. You expect that doing the right thing will lead to good results, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it feels like the rules are broken. The teacher doesn't pretend this isn't real. He names it. He feels it. He calls it meaningless. Vapor mist. Something that doesn't make sense. But then, right after naming the unfairness, he says something unexpected. So I command enjoyment. Wait, what? Life is unfair and your response is enjoy it? Yes, here's why. The teacher isn't saying pretend everything is fine. He's saying don't let the unfairness steal your joy. When life is hard and confusing, choosing to enjoy the good gifts God gives is actually an act of faith. It's saying I understand everything, but I trust
Don't understand.
I don't understand everything, but I trust that God is still good.
It's true. I think, and when we are talking about fear, he says in this book that fear means knowing that God is God and you're not. And that's a good way to put that to kids and adults. Because if you know that God is God and you're not, then you are gonna be humble, and you're gonna be when we talk about watching your mouth, you're gonna be listening more than you're talking. He says, "If you're talking more than you're listening, you're in trouble." Come to God with that posture of, "I'm here to receive and listen," and that let our words be shaped by His.
When you were speaking about fear, what was it? I don't know if it was this book, but you had told me from another book about the 2 different types of fear. Can you talk about those? The godly fear and worldly fear?
I think it might have been this
What's
book
this
that
book?
yeah, godly fear will draw us closer to God,
And worldly fear.
Will draw us farther away.
Yes.
closer to the
And
world,
I
I
think that's
guess. We are aliens, basically. We are aliens. This is not our home, and, we need to remember that.
and I like that when you told me that, I'm like, that really helps because when you read fear the Lord, we get those definitions mixed up. So I think it's good to know there's a godly fear will draw you closer. You'll be in awe, like, wow. Like, but if it's a worldly fear, that separates us. So I like that.
I have something to say. Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like if I was born in heaven or something, but I'm actually grateful I was born on earth. So when I do get to heaven, I'll get to enjoy it and be thankful that there's no crime, corruption, stuff like that.
Well, that is true because back in Ecclesiastes 3, when it talks about a time to live, a time to die, a time to he's putting a limit on our life. Our life is fragile, and having had a migraine for 2 days, it makes me very appreciative of coming out of that. So I see what you're saying there, Titus. Good point. If you don't live in the bad, then you don't appreciate the good.
Yeah.
Be aware of that. You guys have loving parents. Not everybody does, though, and you should be thankful. Sometimes we get what is the word you take it for? What's the word?
Granted.
Oh, that's it. Granted. You take it for granted. You're like, "Oh, yeah, where's my food?" Like that. Well, that goes back to what your mom was talking about, entitled, that entitlement,
Mhm.
which is man, that steals your joy so
That's
fast.
true. And gratitude, he says gratitude is the antidote to greed. So that's what
Ooh.
essentially when you're grateful, you can't be greedy. And so when you're grateful, gratitude helps you enjoy those gifts from God. And he also says having everything doesn't help if you can't enjoy it. So greed prevents us from enjoying the things that we do have. And the fact that joy is a gift from God. So but it all works and God has it set up perfectly. If we just, and He wants what's best for us. And He knows how we were made and how we're supposed to function. We're supposed to function with joy, you
Mhm.
know, because again, that goes back to the whole truth thing. When we're believing lies and we think, well, I have to have this next thing that my neighbor has to be happy, that's a lie and that's a trap. And you fall into that. And then you get it, you're not happy, and you need the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And what he's saying is that gratitude stops all that.
That is so true. You know, every advertisement is telling you you aren't enough. You don't have enough. Every single advertisement. So, depending on how much screen time you have, think how much bombardment
Mm,
you have. I need this, I need that when we really don't. Yeah, I wrote that down. Contentment is better anxiety truth bomb. It's telling you you can't take it with you. It gives you the ability to enjoy what you have,
that's true.
you know, and that's true contentment. That's how Paul and Silas could sing while they were in prison. Because you know, if somebody came and took everything you had, can they take God away from you?
No.
They can't.
They could even take your life, then you would go to heaven and get close, the closest you'll ever be to God.
It was kind of ironic that I had read to you boys chapter 7. It says truth comes from hard experiences, and it talks about it's better to be in the house of mourning than it is the house of feasting because in parties you don't learn anything. And when I came home, I had to go to a funeral of a dear friend, which was a house of mourning. But I feel like that is a wise person is willing to sit in the hard moments. And that's a hard moment, but yet the person that passed away, she helped me become a better Christian. She was a good mentor, and to reflect on that is very powerful. A
For
wise
sure.
person doesn't run from hard
I think
stuff.
we don't like funerals as a society because it reminds us of our that we are a vapor and
Yeah,
we don't.
fragile.
Yeah, and we see that's why everyone tries to look younger. We don't like age, especially in America. I think America is the worst with that. They're promoting youthfulness instead of let like there should be honor in age because of wisdom. You've lived longer. There's you we should respect that.
Mhm.
But again, if you're afraid of dying, you're gonna try everything you can to not look at it. But
That's
there's
right.
something funerals are good to help us that we're all gonna die. No one gets out of here alive.
That's so true. And in that chapter, I think he said the antidote for pride is patience, and I never thought about that.
Ooh,
Yeah. I never thought about that. But,
that's the antidote.
yeah, because patience is humble. And you have to be humble to say, have you ever let someone go in front of you at the grocery store or something? It's a good feeling. So you are at that moment being very humble. Like, you go ahead.
And
You go ahead,
patient.
you know. Yeah, and it's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you sometime. I mean, I've actually done that, and then the cash register break down, and I'm like, "Oh, why did you not go?" But that has happened to me, but I was like, "Well, you know." But I'm trying to learn and make myself get some patience
So
because patience trumps pride altogether.
so if patience is with humility, then impatience is with pride.
That's right. And he, I think, had a quote in there. It says, patience says, I'll keep going. I'll trust the process. I don't control the timing, but I'll stay faithful. And that's when he said, patience is humble, pride is not.
Mhm.
But I mean, God is sharpening. You mentioned this at the start. We want to be comfortable, but you can't be sharpened. God is sharpening us. You cannot be sharpened and be comfortable.
Mm,
Like his prophets and all think of all the people who were close to God. They had painful
yeah.
times, very painful. I think we and I forgot the name of the book, but one of them he addresses the God of comfort. Many people serve the God of comfort. And
I don't think we have
I'd
idols,
never
but you're right. That is a big one.
yeah. And your brother once mentioned the God of
Mm.
convenience. That's another one. Like, well, I want to do what's easy. Well, that's the God of convenience. So, yeah, there is many idols, but we don't think of them as idols.
Brene Brown does she has a and I can't remember the exact quote, but something along the lines of, "If it's fast, easy, and fun," like, we kinda need to be careful, you know?
Yeah.
So, ask yourself if something is fast, easy, and fun, I don't think it's gonna be, beneficial.
And I think Paul says that. He says everything is permissible, but is everything beneficial? Sometimes we want to get so close to the line and say, well, God doesn't say I can't do that. God doesn't say I can't do that.
Mhm.
But what his silence means something too. Did he command you to spend all day binge watching a show? No, because he says, even in Ecclesiastes, receive each day as a gift. You've got to be moving forward, and you've got to be productive, be useful, do something. I think we get that kind of mixed up sometimes. I know I do. It's
Well,
easy to get discombobulated.
sometimes and we have to be careful when we say be productive and useful because being still with God is being productive. But our
Yeah.
society doesn't we see it as like I need to be doing something because I fell into that trap where it's like almost that performance based lens where I don't feel worthy unless I'm performing and that's a lie and that doesn't make me feel good and that's not what God intended. And so we have to put on the correct lens, the truth lens that we can't do anything to earn our worth. That was inherently given just because God made us, because He loves us. That's where our worth comes from. So there's nothing we can do that we can earn that. And it is good to be productive. I think, but it's better if that
Well, I
comes out
think
of a heart of love.
fruitful, to be
Fruitful.
yeah, to be fruitful is what we talked about that once. Well, the thing I was alluding to is not to be stagnant.
Mm,
Because when you are stagnant, well,
complacent.
nothing grows. Nothing grows in that kind of environment. And you may think, oh well, I have arrived. I have arrived. No. We get to the end of Lord of the Rings, the battle's been won, but is it over? No. They're going to continue to fight the good fight. And that's what we're supposed to do. And to fight, you've got to be active. You can't be passive.
But do you think that I feel like complacency would be a symptom. So do you feel like if that is a symptom, instead of just addressing that at a symptom level, I feel like it would be more beneficial to get to the root of it. So why I feel like that would be the root would be there is a lie underneath there somewhere. Because if you were living out of the fullness of God and fully filled up with his love, you wouldn't be complacent.
Well, Ecclesiastes tells us that there are seasons though, and there are valleys that you're gonna go through, and sometimes we would call maybe that valley would be dry, would just be dry, and sometimes it's gonna be harder than other times, that you could be sick or you could have just a moment of mental health where it's not very good. So, and I think, yeah, complacency could be a symptom of that, but it could just be hills, and you have hills and you have valleys in life. Chapter 8 says you can't straighten what God made crooked. Fearing God keeps you balanced. Bad days are teachers. They make you think, they keep you humble, they help you trust God. Keep walking. Wisdom has limits. Accept your limits. And I think that's what, and I do think sometimes we skip over being still with God, but that's not being inactive though. That's being very active.
Mhm.
Because he talked about that in the chapter where he says, "Are you talking more than you listen?" So it's time for someone else to talk because I don't want to be.
So let's do our main takeaways. Let's pull what's
Uh,
something that really stood out to you.
Something that stood out to me is that the world is temporary, it doesn't last forever, and we don't need to be worried about kind of the future and all that because all we have to do is trust the one who knows everything and is, to basically, yeah.
I got out that no one is perfect, and no one is perfect. And another thing is that we're all gonna die soon. So like someday we're gonna die. So you can't be like Peter Pan. You're not gonna stay alive forever. You can't be like Peter Pan. You're gonna die eventually. So you always have to remind yourself like. Because I've gone, you don't want to grow up, you don't want to die because you just think of the thought, But that's life, you're gonna die, so
Yeah. And so what is our main purpose? Why are we here?
to spread the
To
gospel.
serve and worship God.
To glorify God, right? And sometimes we lose sight of that and we want to do things for us, but there's no fulfillment in that.
So true. I think joy is refusing to let bad stuff define your life stood out to me. And also, there's a chapter that talks about dead flies and quiet heroes. And I like that one because he's talking about how fools turn up the volume to cover up emptiness. And I think foolishness is loud. And I don't want to, we're kind of attracted to loud though. And a wise person stops and sharpens. And we talked about sharpening, to be ready to just have confidence in God where you can just jump in and stop overthinking things. He talks about that. We tend to overthink. We want to know that our ducks are in a row, every single duck. But there comes a time where, you just do the best you can, and you might just, your job is to be faithful and trust God. And sometimes you're just going to jump in. This is so easy, but so eye opening. Foolishness makes simple things complicated. Wisdom makes complicated things simple.
And that's what we see how he wraps up the end of Ecclesiastes is we see that he simplifies it. Fear God, keep his commandments. That's what's important. Fear God, keep his commandments.
And then afterward, we'll say, remember, fear God and keep his commandments.
That sounds great. Love it. He also says Solomon is trying to teach us that experience is a teacher with sharp elbows. Because, in Proverbs, it's all these sayings like a father sitting down with their son saying, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, you will reap what you sow. Ecclesiastes says, not always.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you do sow, but you don't reap anything. A drought comes
Life is
and you get
unfair.
nothing. Now, this is like the grandpa who's lived a little longer and he has some more wisdom. And he's saying, yeah, sometimes age teaches you to notice things and youth teaches you to run, and those need to work together. But don't wait until your life slows down. I love that you boys are reading your Bibles and striving to please God at such an early age, because when Nana was a little girl, nobody taught me about God. And that's how I know, even if you weren't taught about God, you will wonder. You have that in you because we're all created by a wonderful, loving Father. So it's in there.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And you guys, and you may say, why is that so great? Well, because you won't have to learn it all when you're old. Like didn't start learning until I was driving a car. That's when I started going to church and meeting people that loved God. I had to wait a long time. And look how, you guys will have that depth that Solomon's talking about.
And so for me, I thought it's important to know too is that God is real, and I like how he says, in a world full of vapor, he's the only solid thing. So I feel like in
Powerful.
our society, even now with AI and everything, it's hard to know what's real and fake anymore. Like the AI can produce videos that look real. I mean, there's bots on social media saying things to try to get us to go one way or the other. So in all this mess, it's good to know, you know what? All I need to know is God is real. He's solid. So I'm going to go with what he says, and that it really simplifies it, and it takes a lot of anxiety away. That's all we have to do. We don't have to know everything, but we just have to hold hands with the one who does, and just we get to have that childlike experience which is so nice when someone else is driving the car, and I think he talks about that. You're in the seat,
Mhm.
and as a kid, you're not like, "Oh, we need to turn there. We missed our turn. We're da No, you're just, like, back there. You're looking at roads. You're enjoying the journey. You don't have to worry about how you're getting there.
Kate, that is so powerful. I love the way you said, "In a world full of vapor, God is the only solid thing." How powerful is that? Because it hooks with that hardware store story about the guy coming in and he wanted something, but he didn't know what he was building. He had no idea, and that guy said, "If you don't know your goal, every aisle looks right."
Mm,
I think we got a lot of people in the world, they don't have a goal, so everything, "I'll try this, I'll try this."
yeah.
And you hit the nail.
Well, that is a
Powerful.
wrap on the What is the Book of Ecclesiastes by
Michael Whitworth,
Is that right this time?
and I mispronounced his name earlier, but, we thank you. We're grateful for your ear listening, and we hope we can grow together.
But we thank you for your ear, and we hoped you listened clear.
Good one,
Remember, let's connect to reflect
and Fear God.
and keep his commandments.
because that's what counts. Catch you on the next one.